All right, welcome back to the IDP Plus Rankings Show. My name is Nathan, and I am here with my co-hosts Johnny and Brandon. How are you guys doing today? Go through real quick, let everyone know how they can find you. And today we're going to be talking defensive tackle tiers, as you can see on the screen. But Johnny, where can people find you? What's the content you put out?
Absolutely, man. Blessed to be on the show today, talk some defensive tackles. I do a lot of IDP talk, also offensive too, here with the IDP Plus team. You can find me and follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. I'm at Johnny Freakin F1. A lot of start sits, questions about who to pick up, waiver wire finds. So just in touch with everything, well-rounded content. So give me a follow if you haven't already.
Awesome. And Brandon, where can people find you?
Absolutely. Follow me on all social media platforms at Brandon Lee TV, covering everything from fantasy football and the biggest NFL headlines to this March Madness we're going through right now. So definitely lock in and check me out on IDP Plus, where we're talking all things fantasy, articles, videos, everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today we're going to go through defensive tackle tiers. This was an article put out on idpplus.com by Steve Thomason at Dynasty Santa. I will preface really quickly that this is the end of a series that we've been doing, which has been going through tiers by position. These rankings are a little bit on the older side, so we will be calling some of those changes out through this video, but just kind of giving a chance to look through and touch on some players that need to be talked about. With that, make sure you go to idpplus.com and become a subscriber. Not only do we have the rankings that are refreshed daily, we've got a ton of data, ADP, we've got these premium articles, and then tools to win your fantasy league. Go there, sign up with mock draft promo code, and get $1 for the first month of a monthly subscription. And then get into our Discord and be able to talk to all of us directly. But with that, let's move into tier 1. And for our audio listeners, we have Jeffrey Simmons at 1, DeForest Buckner, Kobe Turner, Christian Wilkins, Quinnen Williams, Chris Jones, Justin Matabuki, Derek Brown, Zach Sealer, Kalijah Cansey, Jalen Carter, and Ed Oliver. So my first question, I'm going to go to you, Johnny. Is Justin Matabuki too low here? In big play scoring, he is the number 1 defensive tackle for 2023 over Buckner. What are your thoughts on that? And you're on mute. You're on mute, buddy.
Thank you. So first off, the contract that he just got, $98 million for 4 years, great contract, well deserved, and I do see a lot of potential. Baltimore has a way of getting the most out of their players, especially off a big contract. So on one hand, I do believe it for him to be this high, but at the same time, there are flaws to if you're looking at track record. He really didn't put the pieces together, and there were glimpses. And you'll find people that'll say, we saw this coming, and maybe this is, who he is, and maybe he goes higher than this. But I think this is a good point for him right now. You can't put him in the top 3 yet, even though the year he had, I think it was 9 games with a sack or more. So he did great things this year. I really like him to build on that, at least match. I'm not expecting him to do better because it was such a great season. But at the same time, there is flaws. If you look at track record, he didn't put all the pieces together. Take that for what it's worth. But I do expect him to continue to have a solid career moving forward at only 26 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon, what do you think about this? Is Matabuki somebody that, maybe could be moving up this rankings over time?
I definitely think so, and we know, he definitely just got paid. The Ravens do such a good job at developing talent on the defensive side of the football. I think there's a lot of upside, and I think his best football is ahead of him. But speaking of young guys, a guy that I would like to touch on is Kobe Turner. I think that he is the guy with probably the most upside on this list. You look at the 2 guys ahead of him, they're older, Simmons as well as DeForest Buckner. Buckner, 81 tackles last year, 8 sacks, still producing at an extremely high level. Simmons a little bit down, 5.5 sacks for him last year, but I think he'll bounce back. But looking at Kobe Turner, I think that with 57 combined tackles, 9 sacks, a kid I was familiar with, played at Wake Forest, just 24 years old, has really found his rhythm early in his career, and he's been rewarded with a 3rd spot. I think, by the end of this season coming up, though, he's a guy that could be at that top spot.
There you go. Well, talking about someone that got paid this year as well, Chris Jones just signed a record-setting deal for defensive tackles with, I believe, a 5-year extension. Brandon, does that move him up in your rankings?
Yeah, I think so. I think just because you have that stability, he's kind of proven that contract kind of proves that he is viewed around the league as the standard for the defensive tackle position. He's a guy that, if you value tackles, you can feel safe drafting him. If you value sacks, you can also feel safe drafting him. Last season, I'll say the last 2 seasons, his first time in his career, consecutively getting double-digit sacks. I think he's still got a lot in the tank. And now the fact that he's got that security, that money, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to prove to the Chiefs that he's worth that contract. And to be honest, he already has. We saw at the beginning of the season when he had to hold out how that defense looked and how they weren't able to pressure quarterbacks. And that defense was getting shredded straight up. So you bring Jones back. He's a game wrecker in the playoffs. He was incredible. And obviously we saw the tweet from Patrick Mahomes as well. He knows what Jones brings to this team. So yeah, a lot to be excited about in Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Johnny, Chris Jones is one of those names, and I know that sometimes you shy away from the names, but with that new extension, does he move up in these rankings for you? And would you rearrange these rankings at all?
So yeah, I could make a case for him to move up, just based on the Chiefs were willing to give him that guaranteed money, and as fantasy we should take heed of that because he's a guaranteed player. You know what you're going to get with him. Some of these guys are volatile. Kobe Turner, like Brandon mentioned, he had 7 sacks in his last 7 games, and Brian Baldinger had a nice breakdown of his couple plays that go on Twitter and find that video if you like Brian Baldinger breaking down players. But at the same time, yeah, Chris Jones, I like him to move up. I think he's more than durable, like a guy like Kobe Turner. We talked about 7 in his last 7 games. The first 10 games, he had 2 sacks. I believe the latter. I believe that's like Brandon said, that's the player who he's going to turn into. So he's going to keep growing. But it's tough to not take a Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams. Even these guys are more consistent. I think maybe the ceiling on Kobe Turner might be higher. But Chris Jones, yeah, I think the guaranteed money, the guaranteed what he's going to give us as far as sacks. Now, I will say I play in tackle-heavy leagues. Somebody, if Christian Wilkins, somebody like that who gets tackles as well as sacks. We saw him get 9 sacks this year. The tackles were there, over 60. He had the record until Derek Brown broke it this year. So to me, I like to bank more of those players, those well-rounded players. You don't have to really rely on sacks. And Chris Jones, he more than makes up with some huge games. So there's huge walking bomb potential with Chris Jones. I definitely think that he'll have a good another 3 or 4 years. So yeah, if you want to talk about durability, then you're moving him up on your boards.
Johnny, I think you made a really good point. I just want to chime in really quick about Derek Brown and the tackles. 108 total tackles this year, only 2 sacks. But I think, if you're banking on tackles, he does so well in the middle of that Carolina defense with tackles. It kind of, subsides the sacks. He makes up for it with those tackles. I would like to see him get to the quarterback a few more times this year. And I think with that type of upside, if he's a guy that can even get 5 or 6 sacks with that total tackle, we're moving Derek Brown at least into the top 4 or 5.
Right.
Nice. Absolutely. So, speaking on guaranteed money, there's a guarantee that if you put money into going to the FF Expo, do you like my little my transition there? If you go to the FF Expo, you are guaranteed to have a good time. And if you do go, you'll get to meet the IDP Plus crew, who will have a booth in the VIP section. and we will be at all of the events. You can come in and you can ask us about our rankings. You can ask us about our process with everything. And also, I like to give out advice on if you were try and break into the content creation or the industry, how you can do that. So, that is in August, early August. Go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com and get your ticket. It's in Canton, Ohio. It's that weekend right after the Hall of Fame game, which is, I think it's going to be August 9th through 12th or 13th, somewhere around that range. Um, this will be like my fourth or fifth time going. Great experience. But Johnny, I know this will be your first. Are you, and I've been asking you every week, but I know that it's just the hype is growing. Are you excited to get there to Canton?
Very excited, man. This is my first kind of this upcoming year will be my first full year with the IDP Plus team, and I think that's a great way to collaborate, to get to know people. I'm always somebody who's willing to meet new people, and I'm very personable myself, and that's how I like to work, is through networking, through word of mouth, through talking, and that's how I learn as a fantasy analyst. Is I'm not here as a former scout or anything like that. I'm a fantasy player, but I really like what the community has to offer as far as tweets and content. And you don't really get a chance on a lot of these podcasts to talk much in real life. So it'll be nice to also talk fantasy, but at the same time get to know these people on a personal level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great events that they have going on is Draft Night Out. And it's a separate ticket go and run through in between media, but IDP Plus is actually sponsoring a league. So we're bringing IDP to Draft Night Out at the Expo. So definitely make sure to get your ticket for that and join the Lawrence Taylor division for the IDP experience there. But it's a fun time at a local bar there right next to the Hall of Fame. You get to draft in person with the big boards with the stickers. Now, I've only had a few opportunities because I generally do most of my drafting online. But Brandon, are you a big in-person drafter or more of an online drafter? And have you done one of these events before?
Yeah, so I when I'm able to make in-person drafts, yeah, I'm big on that. I've got a fantasy league that we've been doing with some of my fraternity brothers since college, IDP league since like 2012, like freshman year. And we've drafted, pretty much every year in person. I've missed the last couple since I've moved for work, but yeah, I'm big on, the atmosphere, the wings, the rest of the food, cracking a couple of cold ones and just strategizing, man. It looks like the actual draft in there, tablets, laptops, notes. So it's a big deal, man. And now that the league has transitioned to Dynasty, there's really no months off. I mean, we've got a group chat talking about the combine, guys that are sticking out. So yeah, it's for real.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're listening to this, you want to go to the expo, you want to experience Draft Night Out and drafting in person, go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com, get your tickets, and come find us in Canton and let us know what you think of the show. But with that, let's transition over to back to the show and into tier 2 of the Dynasty or defensive tackles. I'm sorry, Dynasty rankings. So at number 13, we've got Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Dexter Lawrence, Javon Hargrave, Cameron Hayward, Osa O. Oh crap! I'm gonna Odigizua. That was the best I think I could do.
Give it a go.
Aaron Donald, Leonard Williams, Vita Vea, Christian Barmore, Eric Armstead, and David Onyemata. So, Brandon, this one's for you. Aaron Donald finished 8th in 2023 in big play scoring. Does his age provide a value now to get him or trade him now that we see him down in the the low tier 2s?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's the biggest name on this list. We know that, seeing it. And just the way he's still impacting the game is incredible. I think people are going to be overlooking him this upcoming year, and I think if you're in redraft, you'll be able to get him for a bargain and still get that same production. He's another one of those guys that they move around, plays in the middle, plays on the edge, so he's able to get sacks and running backs down from behind still and get tackles. So I think he'll be a great value pick at this position.
Gotcha. So Johnny, is Aaron Donald the only one that you see out of here that could be a value pick? Is there anyone else that stands out?
Good question, man. I like Jonathan Allen at 13. He's when I talk about a nice blend of stats, he has a nice floor, 50 or more tackles. He should get you 7 or more sacks. So I think he's well rounded. He might be a little bit overlooked himself. I also like number 22, Christian Barmore, a lot. Christian Barmore really tore it up towards the end of the season. This season he had 64 tackles and 8.5 sacks. I'm more specifically talking about weeks 14 through 17. Those not last, but the later 4 weeks of the season. Of course, there was a week 18, but looking at 14 through 17 specifically, in those 4 games, he had 24 tackles, average of 6. That's great for a defensive tackle. That's the Forrest Buckner numbers at tackles. Then he had 4.5 sacks in those 4 games. With one specific game against Denver, he had eight tackles and 3 sacks in one game. So another walking bomb, somebody who is a young player who I think that, not much changes with Belichick to Mayo in New England. And I'm really excited to see what Christian Barmore, what the future holds for him. I think he's somebody who can definitely make that leap. He definitely has the potential. And I think, he's going to be moving up these rankings, coming into August, around draft time.
Nice. Absolutely. So, one more time, Brandon, back to you on touching on these players. I'm just looking to see, are there any other, potential diamonds here that you would be targeting?
I think Johnny made a really good point about Jonathan Allen. He's a guy that is older, like not older, he's 29 years old, but he's older than a lot of these other guys that may be at the bottom of this tier that are coming up more so. But the thing that sticks out with me about Allen is that he's played 15 games at least in the last 6 years. He's not a guy that misses games, so you can rely on that. He'll be available for your squad if you need him. I think that's big with him. Another guy that is still game wrecking is Cameron Hayward, who's a little older. I think Javon Hargrave is a guy that can still improve. He went down in tackles a little bit this past year, but he's up in sacks. Still netted 7 sacks playing on that 49ers defense. And I think Osa is another guy that has steadily improved. His tackle total has really improved like year after year after year. He's still progressing, still, on the right side of 30. So if you're looking for a couple diamonds in the rough, I think those are some guys that you could watch out for.
Nice. All right. So let's get a little bit more into the rough here at tier 3. And to, for our audio listeners at 25, we got Kenny Clark, then Zach Allen, Justin Jones, Grover Stewart, Dermont Jones, Harrison Phillips, Jerron Reed, Grady Jarrett, Brian Brise, Gervon Dexter Sr., Zach Pickens, and Keanu Benton. So for you, Johnny, Jerron Reed had 6 games outside the top 36 for his position in big play scoring, but finished the year in the top 12 overall. Does his volatility contribute to him being ranked in tier 3? And could that be a player that others might overvalue because they're looking at that overall ranking and not how he did, week over week?
Yeah, I think that's something you're going to have to live with. A lot of these players that we're talking about, they do have, big games and then kind of go numb, in between. And that's kind of the position, you're with many of these guys, even when we talk Chris Jones, and there's games where, he's not able to break through to get to the quarterback. And if you're not a high tackle volume player, it will hurt you some weeks. But I think it is good to look at the end of the when it's all said and done, look at the totals, because especially if you're somebody who, you like to set it and forget it at this position. Reed's a fine play. You don't want to be chasing the big weeks and then, lose a good player and get stuck with a 0 from somebody else the next week as it is. So yeah, Jerron Reed, I think that, he's somebody down here who's consistent when it's all said and done, and that's fine by me. I don't peg him for that because the position's volatile as it is. And if you're playing tackle heavy leagues like myself, Jaron Reed, he's going to get it done some games. Like I said, you're going to have to work through those peaks and valleys, but I do think that his value could come up in the future.
There we go. So, Brandon, what do you think about that? Maybe I was looking at the volatility of Jaron Reed, but with the position as a whole is very volatile. Is Jaron Reed someone that you would be targeting in your drafts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that, like you said, he's gonna get it done when you need. He's volatile at times, like other players on this list, but he's produced, and I'm sure that he won some guys some games last year. So I think if you can get him, though, he's one of those guys that I think is definitely gonna rise into that next tier, and I think he's gonna be a name that people are going to be familiar with by the time the draft comes up. But two other guys that I wanted to take a look at that I think you could get very valuable, and they're going to be overlooked, but they produce, and that's Kenny Clark for one at 25. He's still 28 years old, but had 7.5 sacks last year, which was a career high for him. So when you see guys get into those prime years, that 27, 28, 29, 30 range, and they're still improving, I think those are guys that you can bank on. Justin Jones is another guy, Chicago, that I think would be a very good bargain pick. If Reed is gone, because I think he's a guy that's going to move up just because of his namesake and his big play ability. He's got more upside and more flash than these guys. But Justin Jones, another guy, 27 years old, 49 tackles total last season, which was the second highest in his career. He also had a career high in sacks at 4.5 sacks. Still 27 years old, and I think that Bears defense will continue to improve. They're young, but towards the end of the season, they were playing better football. So those would be some guys I think that you could look at that may be overlooked if a guy like Reed is not available.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny, what are your thoughts on guys to look at in this list? As value picks or people you would be targeting as well.
So I agree with Brandon. Clark solid, and Justin Jones is definitely somebody who's a little bit overlooked in himself. He had the best year he's had, and maybe with Chicago, there's other guys taking attention away from him. He'll be able to break through for an even better year next year. I do like him. I want to mention two guys. One's not on the list. I'll get to him in a minute. But I want to talk about Harrison Phillips at 28 years old, number 30. One thing that might really – he had a great year this year. He had, I want to say, 92 total tackles, which is outstanding. He had 3 sacks. So, somebody who's, for me, a better play because I'm playing in tackle-heavy leagues. What are you going to favor? If a guy can get you 92 tackles, that happened 92 times, right? Versus are you chasing 5 to 10 sacks? To me, that the numbers take more precedence in the tackles when it comes to Phillips because he's really not that high sack guy. But Harrison Phillips, one thing to know about him is, he's not 32. He's not 33 years old. He's 28. And they might not be able to bring back Danielle Hunter in Minnesota. And maybe for better and for worse. Maybe Danielle Hunter was able to take attention away from Phillips, right? Sometimes that's a blessing. But let's be honest, if Hunter goes somewhere else, they're going to need somebody to step up. And I think Harrison Phillips in the prime of his career is somebody who can make that jump, somebody who can improve. 92 tackles, to me, that's stellar. In tackles heavy leagues, he's way higher than 30. So I think Harrison Phillips gives you a solid floor as long as you don't need those sacks. If you're in a league where you're getting 7 or 8 points a sack with sack yards, it's kind of tough to make a case for somebody who only is going to get you a couple sacks. But Harrison Phillips, I really like here. He's a great value. And the one player who I wanted to mention who isn't on that list is Michael Hope from the Rams right now. He's kind of an outlier. He is technically a linebacker. That's his position for the team. But if you're playing in Yahoo leagues, especially redraft, but I know Dynasty isn't too popular with Yahoo, but he is considered a defensive tackle on Yahoo still. Whether that's the case next year or not remains to be seen. But if he is, that's a point to make, to take notice of. Make sure if he's a defensive tackle, he's someone you're hunting. This season, he had his best year overall in his third year, 81 tackles and 6 sacks. And granted, he's not doing that from the edge position or the defensive tackle position. But when the platform deems him that defensive tackle position, he really is somebody who maybe even be higher on this list if he's included.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of those I'll call it broke positions, can really give a player a lot of value on that particular platform. So good to call that out. And if you're playing on Yahoo and you're looking for that, check Michael Holt out. And but with that, we've gone through our 3 tiers of defensive tackles, and we're closing in on the remainder of this this series on positional tiers. And I want to thank my co-host for joining for another episode here next week, or the next episode will be tight end tiers, and that will kind of wrap up this whole series. So definitely make sure you're going back, checking out of all the positional tiers videos, and then the ones we did before that on our YouTube channel, IDP Plus. Make sure and subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell so that you get notified when we have new videos that come out. Give us a comment, let us know what you think of the show. But with that, I want to go through and make sure my co-hosts have a chance to direct people to their content. So we'll start with Brandon. Where can people find you, and what kind of content you're putting out?
Yeah, definitely appreciate that, Nathan. You guys can follow me on all social media platforms and YouTube at Brandon Lee TV, where I'm covering the biggest storylines in sports with a fresh perspective. And definitely check me out on IDP Plus as well with these shows as we continue these series, and read up on the articles. A lot of good stuff there to help you take that next step in your fantasy league.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't miss out. Go to idpplus.com, become a subscriber. And one of the busiest guys on our channel here, Johnny Freaking Fantasy. Make sure you're watching his other show, IDP Plus Trends. But Johnny, where can they find you on the Twitter and your content? What are you putting out?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not following me here on Twitter already, go ahead and do so at Johnny Freakin' F1. You can find me here on the IDP Plus ranking show. More to come. I'll be posted with this. And also, if you haven't already checked out IDP Plus Trends, that's a show that I co-host with my co-host Average Joe's Fantasy Football. And his Twitter, I'd recommend giving him a follow. Great guy, great content. It is at AVG Joes_FF. So give him a follow too, and check out our IDP Plus Trend show.
All right. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Nate Cheat on Twitter. Generally putting out content on how to become a better content creator. I do a website, so I share my website design stuff, and then a huge Lions fan. So if you're interested in that kind of content, you can follow me. But I do recommend at IDP_plus, which is our main account where all of our content comes through. With that, we'll catch you guys on the next show. See ya.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.